Okay, today's date is 20 November 2024. My name is Dennis Gill with the Americans in Wartime Experience. I've got the pleasure of introducing and conducting an interview with Joe Sciarra, and I am conducting this interview virtually. Thank you very much, Joe, for sitting down and sharing some time with us.
I enjoy it.
Yeah, if you could just give us, well, first of all, tell us where you are right now.
Right now, I'm at home in my living room in Arcadia, California.
Okay, just give us a little bit of background on who Joe is. Where were you born, sir? Where did you grow up and go to school? That kind of thing.
Yeah. I was born actually in Chinatown in LA. And after 8 years, we moved to southern LA. And I went to grammar school and middle school. And middle school, I become student body president of middle school. And after that, I went to Fremont High. And there I was very active and joined all the activities and everything. I was always a small guy, but I didn't want to be sit behind anybody. I wanted to be joining, whether I was small or whatever it is. But I just fought all the ways, and I really become very popular with the school. And then when we graduated, I don't know, forever, didn't have the best grades, but I got the highest honor out of 600 students graduating there. So I thought I had something good there. So I made things happen. And during that was the time of the Japanese that Pearl Harbor deal. And so we were short of metal. So I had the school closed down, and we went out and grabbed all the steel we could. And I built that thing up to about 30, 40 foot in the air of steel. And I'm very active, but I was not the smartest kid, but I made a lot of things happen there. I enjoyed my schooling. I did well.
Right. What year did you graduate from high school?
1943.
Okay. So you were in high school during Pearl Harbor. Could you tell us about what you remember about that?
Let me tell you about. When I was in middle school there, and Germany was taking over all those little countries. I was very upset with our president because we were not ready for war, and we just sat there and let Germany take all those countries. And then and I was only 13 years old, and I was concerned. Then when I was in high school, 16, we hit Pearl Harbor, and that would really upset me because we still were not ready for war, and we were in a terrible position when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, and a lot of them right close to our shores in L.A. and Oregon and Seattle. There's some action there on the ocean there, and so a lot of the Japanese that were a lot of them sort of sided with Japan, and they had flashlights on the shore to let their enemies out there. They let them know where they're at and where they can come in. And this is why President Roosevelt took all the Japanese and put them in concentration, the good and the bad. He had to do that because he didn't know who was our enemy and who was not. So then my mother and dad are Italian descent. They come from Italy, and she had 4 young men in the service, and they house arrested her because she's an Italian. She was not a citizen, but my dad was, and that was sort of a blow. That's something I was very unhappy about, and so and from then on, I was on my way. I was drafted before I graduated, but they made me continue with my schooling until the end of the semester. And the day after I graduated, I reported and on my way to whatever they want me to be. And so that's the start of it.
Did you have any other family members that served, that were in the military?
Yeah, all 3 brothers. We were 4 brothers in the service. One was
Okay.
one of them. That's what really upset me because my mother had four sons who were all in the service. I was in the 25th Infantry Division, and one brother was working with patent with map making, and the other 2 coming at a later date. They're older, and they were in the Philippines. I didn't get to see one of them, but one I did see after the war was over there. So we were all overseas.
Okay. Okay. Um, Tell us about basic training. What was that like for you?
Basic training. Well, yeah, I remember I was just a little guy. I just wasn't shaving yet, and so I was at Camp Roberts. That's close to San Francisco. Like I say, I was the type that tried to keep up with anybody. I don't care how tall or how husky they were. I fought right. I trained right next to them and did just as good as anybody. I kept up with everyone in that organization. And I went through the basic training just like everybody else and never hesitated. I did well and I was ready for whatever they want me to be.
Okay. And what did you end up doing in the military? What was
Well,
your job?
when I got to, I didn't know when I left San Francisco for our destination. I did not know what was I going to go. I was not particular. I was ready to put whatever they needed me. They needed a lot of men in the Pacific because we lost a lot of men in Guadalcanal and they were short. So I didn't know too much about it. So I just went along with the flow. Whatever they wanted me to do, I was ready. So we ended up traveling in the Pacific. The first time I ever been on the ship, and I did very well. I did very well, and we were 1,500 on this Liberty ship, and we ended up in a New Caledonia. It's a little island. In fact, it was an island that was wanted by the Japanese very badly because it was real close to New Zealand and close to Australia. They already had Guadalcanal, but Guadalcanal was the Marines come in and they invaded Guadalcanal and they found there's a tremendous trouble that they didn't have enough men to really take over the island, and that's when they call the 25th Infantry Division to help them. The infantrymen had to be there with them, and so I, I I didn't get a chance. I just missed that war. I just bet, but in the Guadalcanal we sort of protected the island. Uh, so we trained there. We trained on a lot of ridges and stuff like that. We didn't know exactly where we were going to go because what I found out later that the Japanese had the full control of the Pacific, which is a rough deal, and so there was a great naval battle between Japan and the United States off of the islands of Philippines there. So that war will determine who will be the owner of the Pacific. And we lost a lot of our ships there, a lot of our men there, but we did prevail and did win that battleship. Now that battleship war. So
Mhm.
now the Pacific was now controlled by the United States, and so that made it possible for us now to make our move. And after we heard that we didn't, we traveled, we left New Caledonia in one ship, and every day we gained a ship. So before we got to Luzon, Philippines, we had 100 ships, and the flagship was in the center. That was MacArthur's. We were taking MacArthur to the invasion of Japan, of the Philippines, and when we landed there, there was not too much opposition because a lot of I understand the Japanese, a lot of them all went to the little islands close to Japan to fortify them because they knew that the Marines could do nothing until we got the Philippines Luzon because they needed that for a base. So once we got the base there, then the Marines were ready to go after all those little islands, and that's what they did. But they were well fortified. But in our case, it so happened there were not too many in the city of Luzon. They were all in 47 ridges. They took over 47 ridges, and they surrounded by 100,000 Japanese. And there was a pass to the south of the Philippines, and they had control of that, and that pass was very important. So that was our job. So as we went to our destination, we were in two ambushes. We were ambushed
Mhm.
twice before we went to our destination, and that was the first of our contact with the enemy, and I was very lucky to get out of that. We were I was in the 81 millimeter mortar company. That's where they put me in heavy weapons, and we were 36 men, six guns. Six guns had they weighed 150 pounds each, and three pieces. So we used to break it down and could travel with them. One of them was a tube, and the tube was mine, which was a 45-pound weight, and that went along with all the rest of my pack. So as we traveled towards our destination, we were ambushed twice, and we had a few losses there. And I was among out of six of us in my squad that I had the guns, and three of them got killed right next to me at that time. So then our job was to take over those 47 ridges, which were surrounded by the Japanese. And so as we went ridge to ridge, and that was a job in itself. The ridges were sometimes 6,000 foot high, 6,000 feet high. So, and then that was very dangerous. We were in a terrible position because the Japanese had the high ground. We had the low ground, and what they were doing, they was picking up the officers and everything with emblems on their cap. And these
Right.
guys were being killed by the dozen, because we had no air support, we had no artillery support. We were on it was a suicidal operation, and they told us before we went up there that 50% of you may not be coming back. And so we just felt, well, we had a job to do, and our job is to take off those 100,000 Japanese. That was our job to do, with a lot of losses and everything, And we were
Mhm.
doing pretty good, taking ridge by ridge a little at a time, and overcoming those sharpshooters of the Japanese. We still being a lot of casualties, and so as that, but we would go about a week and a half, and then we'd be released. We were 30,000 infantrymen fighting 100,000 Japanese. We're three divisions,
Right.
and that was the job. They overcut. We were in their eyesight, and we were there's a lot of things happening to a lot of our guys around me, and I was just lucky at all. But you know what, I felt dying was not no problem. I had a job to do because I was very upset with the Japanese anyway, what they did to Pearl Harbor, and I was there like everybody else. And so every week and a half we'd be relieved, by another 30,000 of our men. That way we couldn't fight that war on a daily basis and go on and on. We have to have some kind of release, and
Right.
we got back. We just filthy dirty. We always crossed a lot of streams. Our shoes were wet. Our clothes were always wet. The rain was there. We had nothing to protect us with any activity there, and there's a lot of disease. A lot of disease we had to be very careful for. So we should go by R&R now and get our letters and get washed up and everything and get ready. We had at least the thing that we had a lot of fleas when we got down where they had to spray us, and something reclosed,
Right.
something closed, and it was a tough thing for an 18-year-old, 19-year-old young man. But
Yeah.
I had a job to do, and it didn't bother me at all. We were there to do a job, and so after we go back for R&R, we have a little decent meal or something like that, and I write letters to our loved ones, and then we go right back again and relieve the other 30,000, and that's how we operated. And so by the time we got halfway through, we had a lot of men die. And we had replacement, but a lot of them no way. Now it's just I don't know, I don't know why I was so lucky because these young men were being blown away right next to me, and you had no time to shed tears. And I just
Mhm.
want to know one thing: what we did when the men got killed like that, we didn't let them lay there and keep going. We took
Right.
them, wrapped them up. We wrapped them up as good as we could. So as we left, the animals would not get to them, because they'd be picked up a day or two, whatever it is. And I say it was a sad time. I'd say a prayer or two, but you got to keep moving right along. So, so when I got halfway through, all our most of our platoon squad leaders, were killed. The platoon sergeant was killed. We had a lieutenant that was killed. So we sort of had a little thing of ourselves. So halfway through, we had an officer come to me and he says, "Mr. Sciarra, as of right now, you're the platoon sergeant. From a white striper, I went to a six striper, seven striper,
Wow.
no, five striper. Yeah,
Wow.
that and in charge of 36 men and six 81 millimeter mortars." Well, I listen. I was scared. I was really scared, and I still was not the man. I still had no beard or anything like that. All the other men had beards and tough and everything. And why I was picked, I don't know why I was picked. But anyway, I did something that you don't see sergeants like me in the movie. I got a hold of all my men together and I says, "Look, I was made a platoon sergeant, but that doesn't mean that we're all going to work on this together. We're all going to make our decisions together. We're going to help each other out to get through this thing." And that worked out beautifully. And I was able to go ahead and throw out the remainder of the war. We had casualties in my platoon, but I didn't lose any, but we had casualties. And we took over those 47 ridges, and we killed all the Japanese, but a lot of them committed harikari, according to their people. And so a lot of times you get up and you see there what they fall in a grenade, and all their inner part would hollow. The whole body was hollow, and we always saw all that. And so I'll tell you one story that I have really a dear friend of mine. His name is Fred Arcangelo. And we had a little time. He was telling me that he was married, had a child, and every holiday he could go by. He walked by the house because he's never invited, and they had big doings. He says, and that was a sad part of my life. And so we were ready to be called to use our guns. So I jumped in the, and we got those guns. They go in a 4x4 hole where they're down a little lower. So I jumped in my position. And sure enough, one of our own artillery shells fell short and cut his head right in front of me. That's these are things that we went through, and we wrapped them up, did the best we could, and you have to say move on. You just don't shed tears. You just got to move on. So that was a sad thing, and I've had a lot of that as a youngster. As an 18-year-old, went to 20. I saw a lot of this in my life. I come from a family that was very religious, never swore, never anything like that. And to be tied up in a position like I was to see this all happening, I had to live with it and work with it and do the best I can and help out where I could, and I did. I help out wherever I can. We worked together. We worked as a family. We had every race there is. And I always mention the fact that I had two Jewish young boys my age with me, and they working hard, just as hard as we did, and they fought the war with us like everybody else. Like right now, the way they're turning on these people, they did the shared World War II with us. So it was a terrible thing to happen to a young man, and any young man where. What we went through, but we beat the hell out of the Japanese. And like I say, there's probably many things they say. Like I say, we had no support from the air, no support from artillery. They never knew where we were at. The jungles, and climbing up and down those those was quite a climbing. I mean, you have to be really in shape to do that. And me, I was just the shortest and little guy in the blue, and I moved right along with all that weapons. Sometimes I would help these other guys with their weapons. They had a hard time climbing. I did for a little guy. I did pretty darn good. But I was concerned for all the men. We're like brothers. we have to work close, especially in the jungle when you're on your own like that. It's it, but my mother and dad, my wife, my brothers and sisters, no one knew what I went through. Not and in fact, they never did. So until this last 2 years, we warriors started to talk, and but anyway, we did win that war, and we made it clear for the Marines to hit those little islands near Japan. That was very important. That base was very important. They had something to work with, and those islands were very well supported. The Japanese really did a job on those Marines. A lot of them lost their lives. They were well fortified, and then when the atomic bomb hit, we knew nothing about the bomb happened 4 or 5 days later because we don't get the news or anything like that.
Right.
And we didn't know when the war was over after the 3 or 4 days, and here all these guys in the States were celebrating and we were still there getting ready. We were ready to make an invasion of Japan. I was training men for Japan invasion at the time, and anyway, so I finally got ourselves. I was shipped to Japan. We hit the most worst typhoon in the history of the China Sea. We were a convoy, and some of those waves and the swellings were higher than a ship. And some of those ships were ready to split in two. That was so bad. And it took us from 4 days, it took us 30 days to hit our destination in Japan. So there I was in charge of, and Sufu is the air base there in Japan, about 125 miles from Kyoto, the third largest city. And that's my job is to destroy all the weaponry, And I did. My platoon did a great job. They showed we had maybe 20, 30 foot high stuff that we took, and all that stuff would be picked up and thrown in the ocean. And we did a big job. But then, those people, when we got there, that you would never know there was a war. They treated us so beautiful. In fact, they invited a lot of the officers, myself, to dinner at their homes, and gave us beautiful dinners and had beautiful homes and treated us like beautiful people. And I just couldn't. I asked them, I said, why you guys want to fight us? Why do you, they wouldn't say nothing. They were quiet about it. Then, I got to tell you this story that when I met a girl when she was 11 years old, and this was in L.A., and I was 12 or something like that. She come from Chicago. She's my brother-in-law's sister, but she was so beautiful, 11 years old. I tried to always get closer, hold her hand, and she had nothing to do to me. She would keep away from me, But anyway, when she went back home, I took and I bought a little bracelet, a necklace, and I gave it to her. And she accepted it. And that's all. Then when she left, I never heard from her again until her sister, when I was in the Philippines, her sister wrote a letter to me that her name was Lucille, that her sister would like to write to me, that little gal I know, 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
She wrote to me for 2 years.
Wow.
And we in that letter, she sent me beautiful pictures of her and everything. And we sort of made an arrangement that when I got home, that we arranged and we have our life together as husband and wife, and that kept me going. That just perked me up, and so when I went home, she wanted me to go to Chicago to bring her and meet her family first, then come back to L.A. Well, I was so ill with my malaria and the other problems I had. I had a disease I picked up with my loss of pigmentation and post-traumatic stress disorder and everything. So when I spent a couple of days with her, but she was upset with me. I can see that she was not happy that she's there and I'm not where she was at, and I tried to explain to her and talk to her. But anyway, I ended up going in the hospital with my malaria. It was a deadly malaria, and so I was in there for 3 weeks. And so when I finally got out, before I got out, I says, if she's not there, I would understand it. That why would she want to wait for a sick veteran, for the rest of her life? And I thought for sure she may not be there, and I would accept that. But when I got out, she was there, and then uh, the. But during all this time I was with her, I had malaria attacks all the time until I was 28 years old before it all wore out. But I'll
Wow.
tell you one more thing about me in the wartime I left out. I try to remember everything. When I was up on the hill, when we had a bomb there, I hit the ground. I hit my face to a rock, and I loosened my teeth. So
Mhm.
they picked me up and take me down to a dentist, and. And so he fixed whatever it was, and they sent me back. But when they let me off on the wrong ridge. And so those ridges are 6,000 feet high. So to get to my ridge, I had to go down that 6,000 square foot and climb another one. And I had to get there before 8 o'clock. I mean, the darkness. Because after dark, anything went around, they'll shoot at. So I had no weapon with me, and so I went down that ridge and up another ridge, and I got there just in time. So that night, the Japanese made an attack on us on our position, and so the next morning, we went down that gully where we thought the Japanese come from, and we
Right.
found they were in holes against inside the ridges. And we had uh, Bangalore torpedoes, anything, and we got them all. But when I was walking up that ridge, all those caves were underneath me. You know, I was the only guy walking up. These guys were all the enemy was underneath that path I was taking. Well, I didn't know that till the next day, till we went after them. So that was I didn't think about it then, but I thought about it a couple of days later. So and that's another thing. That is very important. Is that infantrymen are not looked upon as well as the Marines and the Air Corps and the Navy. We're always a lower part. That I can tell by the claps when they clap. When they introduce the infantrymen, it's a very low clap. Then when the 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 uh, the other three, you can see when they clap is very loud. So
Right.
what people understand that infantrymen won the war in Europe.
Yeah.
They're the ones that won that war in Europe, not anyone else. They had uh, um, the other the other group of there that but they took them and they sent them back to the Pacific, where most of that particular field of doing most of the fighting. And so the thing that's really important, and I still not shaving. I look like a little kid when I got home, but I was ill. But what I'm trying to say is that I speak for all veterans that were in combat, whether it's Navy or infantry or the other. I'm trying to they're famous. The other famous group in Air Corps and
Air Corps. Yeah.
who was that?
The Air Corps. Is that what you're trying to say?
No, the other one. No, the other. They're the specialty group. With I'm just. I'll get to it.
Marines.
Yeah,
Marines.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, when we get home, when us warriors at combat get home, it's when everything hits you.
Yeah.
Everything hits you. because I was stuttering. I had the shakes, Uh, I had a terrible time, and so a lot of these men like me that come home, even today, after they go in combat and they come home, they commit suicide. A lot of them do,
Yeah.
and if if I got out the way I did, and the woman that was waiting for after 2 years and not there, I think I would have been a recipient of that. Yeah, suicide very easily. I have feared there's no reason for me. And especially all that stuff in your mind and everything, and you're not a person yet. You're not a person to get back to stability, civilization like you should. And so I felt I was a recipient of that because I
Mhm.
did suffer from post traumatic stress disorder. I have a 50% disability on that. Then I have a 50% disability of my skin. It's all been. I lost all these the outer part of skin of and my whole body, and
Right.
so I can't take the sun. I have my problem. I've been lucky to go through like I do. I just watch it very carefully, and so right now after all these years, they're asking me to do all these speeches, and I'm really enjoying it because I speak for these young men. I don't speak for myself. When I speak for all the guys, and they all went through the same thing I did. And I was first going to Kingston, New York. I don't know if you heard that. I was in
Hmm.
Kingston, New York, speaking. They were the first to invite me there, and they all paid $80 per person to hear us servicemen speak. And that money goes to veterans. Then when I went to New Orleans, I was there alone, and they treated me like the king. I was
Oh
traveling.
yeah.
Were you there?
No, I was not, but I can imagine World War II vets are always treated that way.
I was alone in New Orleans, and I had 150 of all the city, the mayors, the councilmen, the police department, fire department, all waiting when I got off the plane to cheer me on. And then the police department took hold of me, and I had a row of police cars, just like a celebrity, going down the hill and take me to my area I was supposed to go to. But when I was the only one speaking there, and they paid $100 per person to hear me speak. But
Wow.
I had the young and restless with me. They didn't have to say anything. They drew the crowd because of them. But after I spoke, I had a standing ovation. I had tears in their eyes. What I had to say. And I thought I did very well there, beautifully. So in the meantime, I've been invited to go to so many places, speaking. To Rotary clubs and I'm invited to go to Pearl Harbor. I haven't heard from the gal. Said she's going to be my escort, and then I'm invited to Nixon Library to
Yep.
speak. And then I just got a call yesterday if I would speak to a group of a little Italian group in North Hollywood. They heard about me and they like to hear what I had to say. So I don't mind. I enjoy whatever it is. I think it's keeping me going and keeping my mind sharp. And I feel I have a story to tell and I want to tell it. And I speak not for myself. I speak for the Marines. I speak for the Air Corps, the, the SEALs, and then I went to the Washington D.C. Just a week or so. I just got back, and that was a big event. And
Yep.
thousand. Are you there?
I was there. Yep. That's where we met.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That was exciting. Then when the 24 of us got on the stage, the 24 warriors, and they introduced each and every one of us to all those people there, and there's things that you want to talk about it, but you can't talk about it because there's so much good things that they're there to talk about,
Yeah.
and that was beautiful. And I met you there, right? Right?
Yes. Yes.
Great, great. Like I said, I'm meeting so many people right now that I'm trying to remember them all. And your name again?
My name's Dennis.
Dennis. Yeah, Dennis.
I don't
I
remember half the people I meet either. So,
so I try to remember. Now I'll remember who you are.
yeah.
And, so I had my grandson with me, and he did a great job of getting me around and doing the things that I should be doing. And I got the thing that really was beautiful there is I met a lot of the hundreds of cadets from Penn University.
Hmm.
Once they heard my speech, um, and then when I don't know if you're there when I said my speech.
I was not. I did not. I missed it.
Anyway, there was what, 8 of us. So I guess we had 40 seconds between the 8 of us. And my grandson was telling me that they only spoke 20 seconds all day, all the 7 of them, and you got 20 seconds to talk. So I was able to say more, and they had to stop me from talking because I couldn't stop talking.
Right.
But and then I got acquainted with a lot of people. They got to know me, and these cadets, all the days following that, they all surrounded me. They all want to know more about me and more stories I could tell, and and they're beautiful. I told these young men that they're young women that that they're the future of our country. And then we had that big dinner deal. I
Hmm.
was sitting at one table, and the young gals from the cadet were sitting at the table back of me, and this little gal turned around to me, says, "You want to dance?" That's I can't walk, but you can get up. I can give you a big hug. So I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah.
That was a big and beautiful event.
Oh,
I
yeah.
I enjoyed that very much. So maybe you can add, if you want to ask me any other questions you think that I left out, I'd be glad to
Yeah.
answer them.
That girl that you were talking about, did you marry her?
I'd love to, yeah.
You did?
Oh no, yeah, the one, yeah.
The
We were
one that you
married.
met when she was 11.
Yeah, we were married for 72 years.
Wow.
The most beautiful young lady. Let me tell you, I could not be so lucky. I knew her when she was 11, but when she was 18 or 19, when I met her coming home, she was gorgeous. And I was just a beat up old veteran and looked lousy and had malaria. And I said, I didn't know, I couldn't really sit down and talk with her like I like to. And it took us a while to get ourselves acquainted together. In fact, Channel 11 took over that story, and it was shown on Channel 11. And mostly, I understand the people that put together was in tears when it was all put together and edited. And we
Yeah.
had it on not this year, last year, Veterans Day. It showed
Okay.
March the 7th and or something like that, right around that time, and it turned out pretty good. And so.
Yeah.
Then I was on radio while I was in D.C. For 7 days before Veterans Day, every day. A lot of my people heard it and on
Okay.
KNX, and so I'm getting pretty well exposed. And Rotary has exposed me quite a bit. The city of Azusa, one weekend, the whole city come together and made a beautiful program and had me there, speaking as a key speaker and got acquainted with so many people. And but I got to tell you this: when I spoke to a group, a lot of youngsters were there, and so after I got done talking, I sat down in my seat, and there was an empty chair next to me, and this little gal comes up to me and puts her arm around me. I thought that was so beautiful, just like she was sorry for me,
Yeah.
and what I talked about. And I thought that was kind of neat. Then I just went to to a Holy Angel Church here in Arcadia 2 days ago and spoke to the whole school. They come in sections, the first and second, then the third, fourth, and then I spoke to them. And some of these little gals, after I started speaking, they all come in line and want to give me a hug. You know, so I must be saying the right thing, and it's getting to them, and
You must be.
that's what I want. I'm there for them. I'm there
Yeah.
for everybody that wants to hear me. I'll tell the story because I'm still one of them still here alive, and so and we also heard I heard those Navy SEALs that spoke that day. And that was really interesting. These guys, what their lives are really at risk, at all time.
Hmm.
And I thought that was a beautiful event.
Yeah. So you have a pretty big birthday coming up in about a month.
Yeah,
Is
next
that right?
21st of December. Yeah,
Yeah. How old will you be?
I'll be 100 years old.
100 years.
Yeah, I
What
got
do you
people
think about
saying,
that?
well, I think when I think about it, it scares the hell out of me. When I don't think about it, I feel like normal. I'm gonna be okay. But when I get 100, it sort of does something down here. I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
but I'm happy that out of all my family, out of my brothers and everything, I had my mother lived. Just missed it by a few weeks to become 100. Then my other oldest brother was 93. My other brother was 97, and my sister was one of my sisters was 96. But my other ones didn't make it. They had a little difficulty in life, and my dad had a stroke. But now I'm the only one left in my whole family, and my wife's family and my family left. And I miss my wife very very much. So I just she she just was the most beautiful thing you'd ever want, and she has two beautiful grandchildren that loved her dearly, and her one son, and she was always had a smile on her face. We never had an argument. And I can remember. I mean, our love was so close and loving that whatever we did, we always agreed that it's okay to do it, and nobody argued about anything. So I always had two beautiful homes for her and make sure she was. She used to take me get when she wanted to buy clothes to make sure that I look good. She tries them on and they look good on her. She was the best dressed young lady you can. Always had beautiful cars for her. She deserved it all.
Right.
And losing her was a big thing for me. But I managed to. I have such. My grandkids mean an awful lot to me, and I feel I like to hang around and see them grow and do well. And my son treats me exceptionally well, and he's sort of taking care of me right now. And my grandkids, I make sure that they pick me up once in a while and have dinner with them. And then the great grandkids they're getting to know me, and so I'm having a good life. But I feel alone a lot. But I do have a girlfriend that calls me every day to make sure I'm okay, and that's good. The friendship. I have a lot of friends, and a lot of friends. I tell a lot of people. They say, "Well, what makes you do what do nice and healthy like you are?" Well, I says, "There's a good reason. I'm always happy because then I go to church on Sunday mornings. I get there early. Then as the women come in, they give me a hug. Then after the service is over with, I stand up, and when they leave, they give me a hug. So I get two hugs every Sunday for all those beautiful girls, and I control the whole back end of the church. So it's all mine. So they say, well, that makes my day and my week. But they all bring me food. They take me up, pick me up, and take me for breakfast. So I'm not alone. I got a lot of friends out there. Then I belong to a Rotary Club that these guys are always there for me. They want to do for me, and in
Right.
fact, they already had a surprise birthday party for me already a couple of weeks ago with 300 people, and that really was a shock. And I thought that was beautiful. So I have a lot of people around me that I'm not alone. Alone too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Let me let me ask you just two more questions. One is what would you like people to know the most about your service? What do you want them to remember about your service?
I think that when they not only mine, I want them to know all the young men that the story that they want me to tell the story they want me to tell is the worst part of the war I was in. and they want me to tell that story because that's what they want the youngsters and adults to know what veterans go through in wartime. And when I tell it, I mean, it sort of hits it pretty good, and all the bad parts that I've been through, and a lot of men that have killed around me. I mean, I didn't go to war and just see nobody killed. I had right next to me foxholes, and the motor company that I belonged to was the worst enemy of the Japanese, and we always had to put our weapons in an open ground because they fire 3,500 feet shells, 11 pound shells. So we had to have an opening. So our position was always exposed. So we were shelled a lot, and so a lot of them were killed with those shells, And then the Japanese were good. They were in the high points. They're very dangerous. And so, no, they want me to. The story that when they went to Kingston, New York, that's the story they want me to tell. The worst story and that I can tell to get to these people. Because if you tell them all the nice ones, they're not going to remember them. But I had tears in their eyes when I got done, especially when I told them about how we wrap our young men, So we wrap them because we have to leave behind, and the animals, we don't want the animals to get to them. And so we wanted to save their bodies for their families and whatever it is, They're our buddies. They're like our brothers. And we work together. And you have to work together. And we did. We look after each other, help each other in any way possible. And being like a kid all the time, I always looked like no beard and anything. These guys look tough and rough, and I looked like just a little kid. But I kept up with them. And I did that all my life, even in school. I didn't look like the oldest, but I kept up with them. I was not the best, but I was there to do my share, whatever it was I had to do. Everybody got to know me anyway. I got a kick out of it. I used to have a speech writer. I was not too good at making speeches, and so I run for an office, and I'll be speaking to 4,000 students in front of students, and I memorized that speech, and I said it like I wrote it, and I tell you, I went over big time. And the other person running against me in an office, he's a very brilliant young man, 6 foot tall basketball star, and he'd be reading out of a note, and here I am speaking like I just wrote my whole thing and memorized it, Right. But this is me. I don't understand. Like then when I moved to Alhambra from Inglewood, California, and I couldn't find too many jobs because of my malaria attack. So my wife and I opened a little meat market in Alhambra, and we did well. So before you know, a lot of people started asking me to join organizations. So I joined the Rotary Club and I had a tough time because those are all executive people in there, and I was just a meat market guy. So I had a rough time, and so I did something. I stood by the door, and every meeting, I make sure I shook everybody's hand and trying to get to know their name, and I become very popular. And before you know it, I become president of the Rotary Club, and a lot of these guys have been there longer than and I was picked as president. And then I went to the YMCA, and they wanted me on the board, and so I was there not too long, and before I know it, I was the president of the YMCA board. And I couldn't figure that out. All these guys are more intelligent than I, and then I become a chamber. They asked me to become a chamber member on the board, and I become president of the Chamber of Commerce, and a lot of these guys are been there a long time, and why they picked me, I don't know. But anyway, I've been very much involved, whatever it is, and made good things happen. And I put programs together and to make sure that it was beneficiary to the clubs, and able to do things that made their success. There were always financial problems, and I'd get programs to make sure we had enough money to move on. And in the Rotary Club, I put a program together. They were ready to go broke. And as of today, they got $180,000 in the bank,
Wow.
And we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars from this program that we give away a lot. We make a lot of kids. We get their tuitions going on their college education. We had that. We do for the city. We helped build the police department, the city hall, the fire, the police department, and the city hall and the library. Helped build a big library there in Alhambra, and I was all part of it all the time. And so I have become very well known. And now the Arcadians learn about me, and they're really
Mhm.
invited me over, and I got to know all the city councilmen, the mayor, and the city clerk, and the secretary to the city manager, and so they invited me to be in North Hollywood in January to speak to a group. That was by the city gal, the secretary, invited me there. So then I'll be going to Nixon deal, and I'm going to Oahu. If that gal ever remembers me, she's a beautiful young lady. I met her in Kingston, and she was a beautiful young lady, and she's involved with veterans and everything.
Right.
And she said, "I'm going to take you with me. I'm going to be your escort." And I said, "Even if I have to drag you, you're coming with me to Pearl Harbor." Well, I've not heard from her, so whatever.
Right.
But I'm getting all these invitations, and then one night the city council called me. They want me to give the flag salute.
Hmm.
So I said, "Why not?" I said, "Sure." So I went there, and there they had 200 people at the city council, and they had a lot of youngsters. They were the baseball deal was over. They were being honored by the city council for becoming championship. But they wanted. So when I got up to get the flag salute, I got up and I said, I am a combat veteran." I says, "and we lost 650,000 young men in World War II." And I turned to the kids and I says, "Do you know why they lost their lives?" Well, I'll tell you, they lost their life for the love of our country. They lost their life for our Constitution. And you see that flag? They lost that love for the love of that flag. And put your hand over your heart and repeat after me. So when I was done, I had a standing ovation where you guys couldn't stop clapping, standing, and I thought that was so great. And then they had the chief police there, they had the fire chief, they had all the top people of the city were there. I thought that was quite a
Right.
yeah, and that's a lot of things I do. My everything I do now is all related to my background in the service, because if that's what they want to know, they have to know why our guys lost their lives, and
Yeah.
there to tell them about it. And I seem to be doing okay, but I get invited all the time to talk. So
I got one more question for you. What advice would you give a young person who's thinking about joining the military?
yeah, that's a good question. For one thing, he's got to believe in the love of our country. That's number one, and he's got to believe that he's going to join because he wants to protect our country and love and protect our flag, and just exactly what I told you. You want to get in this department you feel comfortable with. And if you're thinking about it, I mean, it's not a bad way to go. A lot of people kids can't work, but not only that, they have beautiful things going right now. If you are an educated young man, you can go to school. They'll send you to school for 2 years, but then you got to spend the other time in whatever department you want to go to. Uh, they pay well. They pay well. Um, so I didn't have that opportunity to do that. I have my gal here that she's joined the army right now, and they started out with $2,000 a month, but she's intelligent enough where she can go to school and become an officer or whatever in any particular field, and it's there for them. They'll send you to school, and after that school, you don't have to be an infantryman like me. you can go in a department that is needed. That they need a lot of people in the higher up, and so no, I think it's a beautiful thing. It's a nice place to go. It'll do you a lot of good. It'll do you a lot of good. It'll give you some responsibility. A lot of times you never had that responsibility. You just go on and not think, well, everything's good. But it really educates you very, very much so. And then they send you to school. That's the best thing you can do. I had my nephew go for 2 years, and he was going to school as a dentist. So what they did now, they sent him to school for 2 years to complete his dentistry, but he had to serve 2 years in the service, and they become a dentist in Germany. So there's a lot of opportunities for them there that's good for them. They're also, when they get out of the service, they're more well educated in many ways, and then they did something for their company at the same time, for their country.
Right. Well, Joe, on behalf of the Americans in Wartime Experience, thank you very much for taking some time out of your day to tell your story. I know you've told it a lot, but we really appreciate you taking some time out to tell us your story.
Well, I don't mind.
Yeah. And also, I want to thank you very much for your service to your country.
Thank you.